Close your eyes for a moment and think about this. Right now, as you listen to these words, 7 out of every 10 molecules in your body is water. The same substance that fills oceans falls as rain and flows through rivers. You learned this in elementary school. You memorized it for a test. And then you probably forgot about it because it seems like just another piece of biological trivia. What if it wasn't just trivia? What if the single most important clue about the nature of consciousness has been hiding in plain sight, written into the very composition of your body? What if you're not a solid thing that happens to contain water, but rather a temporary organization of water that has learned to think? I'm here to show you that this isn't poetry, it is mechanics. It's the key to understanding how consciousness actually works and how to work with it consciously. Welcome to Be Water. We're going to explore something that will fundamentally change how you understand yourself, your challenges, your growth, and your entire experience of being human. This isn't another spiritual podcast telling you to just be positive or raise your vibration without explaining how. This isn't some sort of vague mysticism or wishful thinking. This is a complete, systematic framework for understanding how consciousness creates reality and how to master that process. We're going to be using water as our teacher, because water, literal physical water, demonstrates the exact mechanics of consciousness development. Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And once you understand the pattern, you can work with it instead of against it. But we start here, with water, with the 70% clue. Because if we understand what water is and how it behaves, you will understand what consciousness is and how to work with it. Here is what we know, and I really want you to sit with this. Your body is approximately 70% water. The Earth's surface is approximately 70% water. Pause for a moment with that. The planet you live on and the body you live in share the exact same ratio of water to solid matter. The macrocosm and the microcosm are built from the same blueprint, using the same proportions. Now, evolutionary biologists will tell you that, well, this makes sense. Life emerged from the ocean, so of course we carry the ocean inside us. And that is accurate. But it misses something profound. It answers how, but not why. Why would the universe design its primary vehicle for conscious experience, the human body, out of a substance that is fundamentally fluid, formless, and constantly changing? Why not build us from something more stable, more solid, more permanent? Unless fluidity, formlessness, and constant change are precisely the qualities consciousness needs to express itself fully. Unless water isn't just the medium for biological life, it is a physical manifestation of the mechanics of consciousness itself. Think about what makes water unique. It's the only substance on Earth that naturally exists in 3 distinct states within the normal temperature range of our planet. Solid ice below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Liquid water between 32 and 212 degrees. Gas vapor above 212 degrees. Every other common substance tends to exist in one primary state at livable temperatures. A rock is solid. Air is gas. But water moves between all 3 states constantly, naturally, and effortlessly. Every single day, somewhere on this planet, ice is melting into water. Water is evaporating into vapor. Vapor is condensing back into water. And water is freezing back into ice. This endless cycling isn't a quirk of chemistry. It's the fundamental pattern that makes life on Earth possible. The water cycle, evaporation, condensation, precipitation, collection, is what distributes resources, regulates temperature, and allows biological complexity to exist. No water cycle, no life. No 3 states, no water cycle. No fluidity, no consciousness vehicle. So here is my proposition. What if consciousness works exactly like water? Consider these 3 versions of yourself, and as I describe them, notice which one feels most familiar right now. The frozen you, rigid in your beliefs, defensive in your reactions, brittle when life applies pressure. You know exactly who you are, what you believe, what is possible, and what is not. You meet obstacles with resistance. You've crystallized into a fixed identity, and maintaining that structure requires constant energy. This is you when you are stuck, suffering, unable to adapt. The flowing you, adaptable, responsive, powerful yet gentle. You move around obstacles rather than fighting them. You fit into new situations without losing your essential nature. You're clear about your direction but flexible in your path. You have form and coherence, but you don't cling to rigidity. This is you when you are in the zone, when life feels natural, when you are being your truest self. The transcendent you, formless, expansive, everywhere and nowhere at once. You've released attachment to any fixed identity. You can see your entire life from a meta perspective, like looking down at a landscape from cloud height. You experience yourself not as a separate from everything else, but as a localized intensity of awareness within a vast field of consciousness. This is you in your rarest moments of profound recognition. These aren't three different people. They're the three states of the same consciousness. Your consciousness, just like ice, water, and vapor, are three states of the same water. You move between these states constantly, usually without noticing. Something stressful happens, you freeze. The ice state activates. You become rigid, defensive, and stuck. Something flows well, you liquefy. The water state emerges. You are adaptable, creative, present. Something profound occurs. You expand. The vapor state opens. You experience yourself as something much larger than your individual form. The problem isn't that you have three states. The problem is that you do not recognize them when they're happening, and you don't know how to shift between them consciously. Most people spend most of their time frozen, locked in ice state consciousness, without even realizing it. They think rigidity is just who they are. They think their fixed beliefs are reality. They think their defensive reactions are necessary for survival. But it's not who they are. It's just the state that they're in. And states can change. That's what this entire series is about. Learning to recognize your state, understand the mechanics of state changes, and master the ability to flow consciously instead of freeze unconsciously. In 1971, martial artist and philosopher Bruce Lee gave an interview that would become legendary. When asked about his martial arts philosophy, he said, "Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or water can crash. Be water, my friend." For decades, people have treated this as beautiful, poetic, and motivational advice. It's on t-shirts. It's on Instagram posts. It's been reduced to inspiration porn. But Bruce Lee wasn't being poetic. He was giving you a precise mechanical instruction for how consciousness actually works. Let me break down what he actually said. Empty your mind, be formless, shapeless, like water. This isn't a suggestion to be more flexible in your thinking. It's a description of your fundamental nature that you have forgotten. You are consciousness. Consciousness is formless. You're temporarily organized yourself into form, but that form is not your essence. Now, you put water in a cup, it becomes the cup. This isn't advice about adaptation. It's revealing that consciousness takes the shape of whatever beliefs you pour it into, while never losing its essential nature as consciousness. You can believe that you are inadequate, and consciousness will form that shape. You can believe that you are source expressing, and consciousness will form that shape. Same consciousness, different shapes, like water in different containers. Water can flow or it can crash. This isn't motivation. It's showing you the two fundamental paths. The implosion path of flow, moving with least resistance, ultimately unstoppable like a river carving the Grand Canyon. Or the explosive path of force, fighting reality, ultimately exhausting like a flash flood that destroys and then disappears. Be water, my friend. This isn't a metaphor. It is a direct instruction to remember what you actually are. You are water. You've just been frozen so long you forgot that you could flow. Now, think about this. If you were an infinite intelligence, designing a system for consciousness to experience itself in physical form, and you wanted to leave clues about how the system works, where would you put them? You would write them into the system itself. You'd make the medium match the message. You would build the consciousness vehicles, the human bodies, out of the very same substance that best demonstrates consciousness mechanics. And then, just to make sure the really observant ones caught on, you'd make the ratio impossible to ignore. 70% water in the body, 70% water on the planet. The same proportion above and below, as above, so below. The macrocosm mirroring the microcosm. Every spiritual tradition on earth has talked about this principle. Hermetic philosophy called it the law of correspondence. The microcosm contains the macrocosm. But they didn't need mystical transmission to discover the truth. They just needed to notice that they were made of the same substance as their planet, the same proportions, exhibiting the same behaviors. The ocean evaporates, becomes clouds, rains down, flows back to the source. You are born from source, live a life in form, die, and return to source. The water cycle isn't a metaphor for reincarnation. Reincarnation is consciousness following the same mechanical laws as the water cycle. Consider what this means. Every river on earth is teaching you about flow. Every glacier is showing you what happens when consciousness freezes. Every rainstorm is demonstrating how source consciousness condenses into individual form. Every ocean is revealing that all individual drops are actually one unified body of water. The entire planet is a consciousness teaching device, and the primary lesson is written in water. You found this podcast for a reason. Maybe you're suffering and you don't know why. Maybe you're stuck and you can't figure out how to move forward. Maybe you're successful by every external measure, but feel hollow inside. Maybe you've had glimpses of something more. Moments of flow, experiences of transcendence, and you want to understand what's happening and how to access those states more consistently. Whatever brought you here, you're thirsty. Thirsty for truth, thirsty for clarity, thirsty for a framework that actually explains how consciousness works and how to work with it. And here's what I'm offering. The water you're thirsty for is the water that you were made of. The consciousness you are seeking is the consciousness that you already are. The flow you want to experience is your natural state. You've just been frozen into patterns that make flow seem impossible. This podcast is going to teach you 3 things. First, how to recognize the state you're in, ice, water, or vapor, at any given moment. Second, how to transition between these states consciously, how to thaw from ice to water, how to expand from water to vapor, how to condense from vapor back to water when you choose, and third, how to live as conscious water, flowing naturally, adapting effortlessly, serving powerfully. Everything in this series builds on what we've just learned in this episode. The 70% clue is the foundation. You are water. That is biology. That is the fundamental architecture of your being. And once you truly understand what water is and how it behaves, you will understand what consciousness is and how to work with it. Before the next episode, I want you to do something simple. This is your first practice, and it's going to seem almost too basic. But trust me, this is foundational. The water observation exercise. Sometime in the next 24 hours, pour yourself a glass of water. Actually, pour yourself a glass of water. Pour the water from one container to another, a pitcher to a glass, a bottle to a cup, and watch how it moves. Notice how it takes the shape of whatever container it's in, flows without resistance, finds its level naturally, can't be compressed or held rigidly, responds instantly to any new condition, and remains completely itself regardless of the shape it takes. Really watch it. Be present with it. See the fluidity. See the adaptability. See how it's simultaneously formless and formed. And then drink it. Feel it flow into your body, becoming a part of you, merging with the 70% that is already there. And as you drink, recognize that water you just drank. In a few hours, some of those molecules will be in your bloodstream. In a few days, some will be incorporated into your cells. Water becomes you. You are water becoming conscious of itself. That is your practice for this week. Simple, observable, physical. And in that direct, embodied physical recognition, the entire framework this podcast contains is already present. You're not learning something new. You're remembering what your body has been showing you all along. In our second episode, episode 2, we're going deeper into the 3 states, ice, water, and vapor. We'll explore exactly why each state feels like it does, how to recognize which one you're in, and why understanding your current state changes everything about how you approach your challenges, your relationships, and your growth. You'll learn the signs of frozen consciousness, that brittle, defensive, rigid state that most people are trapped in. You'll learn the qualities of flowing consciousness, that adaptable, powerful, natural state that is available to you. And you'll learn about transcendent consciousness, those moments when you experience yourself as something far larger than your individual form. But for now, just for now, do the practice. Pour the water, watch it, drink it, let it become you. Let yourself become conscious of being water, because that is what you are. That's what you've always been, and recognizing it is the first step in learning to flow. You are 70% water. Your planet is 70% water. This is not a coincidence. This is instruction. This is Be Water.